Hello and welcome to today's episode of Platinum Talks Wealth. Emmy-nominated journalist Jennifer Rogers Markwell changed gears in her television career when she realized the need to help women make sense of investing. She regularly hosts educational workshops to empower women and others to take charge of their financial future. Now, join your host, Platinum Wealth Management President Jennifer Rogers Markwell, as she leads us into the world of money memories, money infidelities, and how these can mold our relationship with our personal finances as adults. Let's dive into today's episode.
Hi, and thanks so much for spending some time with us today. I'm Jennifer Rogers Markwell, and you're joining us on the Platinum Talks Wealth podcast. Today, I have the honor of introducing you to Nurse Hadley, who I have had the opportunity to read her book that is coming out, and it's fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. Tell us more about you and why you do what you do.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. My name's Hadley. I have been a hospice nurse for about 6 years now, a registered nurse for 8. And about 3 years ago, I started sharing my stories as a hospice nurse on social media. Not really expecting much. Most people think my job's a little bit depressing, but I have been able to grow this very large community of people who want to know more about it. 2 years ago, I started working on writing a book, and it'll be out soon. And I just absolutely love my job and sharing these stories with the world.
It's, again, I've I've said this to you, like, I think that was the most emotional I have ever been in a book. I mean, feeling so many different feelings and so many different emotions, from sobbing to just your heart is feeling for these people that you're talking about. Would you be open to sharing some of those stories?
Sure, absolutely. It's hard to pick a favorite. I think one of my favorites that I've shared before on social media, I call him Carl in my book. Um, he is one of my favorites. He was like a great parent to me. We got extremely close over the many months that I cared for him. And he was very grumpy at first, which I just love grumpy old men. I'm like, break down your exterior. And he would just watch TV. He wouldn't talk to you. And he had sports on the TV. And I was like, I don't know what my husband loves sport. I don't know anything about it. Like, please tell me all about sports. And he liked that. He liked being able to educate me and not just feeling like I was there caring for him. And so he'd start to tell me, and then every time I'd show up, he'd just start telling me more and more and more. And he made it his job to educate me on anything. He'd watch the news all day and he'd write down things that I should know because I'm just working crazy hours. And we really built a relationship that way. And then closer to his death was that part. He had thanked me for giving him something to look forward to other than death, which was very impactful for me. I didn't even really realize what I was doing, but giving him a job was really important to him. And then a few days before he passed, he had what we call a surge of energy. And he was out of bed, which I'd never seen him out of bed before. And he was playing hide and seek with his toddler who had passed many, many, many years beforehand. And it was extremely remarkable to see this and see how his daughter came back and got him. And he passed very soon after. And it was very emotional for me. So that was probably one of the hardest deaths I've ever experienced. But I learned a lot from it, and I'm a better nurse because of it.
So throughout what you're sharing through words, right? It seems like there's that common thread through so many people and their experiences. And ironically, I remember my grandma talking to her mom. I'm getting all emotional. And that was a thing. But I didn't realize that was a thing universally that you're seeing with so many people across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. So many people have their deceased loved ones come to get them. And it's not really something that you talk about outside of hospice nursing. And it's really quite remarkable, but it's something that we all see and we all talk about. And it's seen as a sign, just like any other medical thing, like, oh, their heart rate's slowing. It's they're seeing deceased loved ones. Whoever's on call, get ready. You might get a call. We take it very seriously.
Yeah, I wish this was more. I mean, and true, like so good that you're doing this and getting this out there, because there was definitely the thought process of like, oh, she's hallucinating or something's happening. And even in your book, experiences from people like, oh, yeah, she's just kind of losing it a little bit.
And then whenever you realize it, you can really embrace it. And instead of being worried, like hallucinations, you can be like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, can you tell me more? Like, what is Grandpa saying? Like, I'd love to hear from her, instead of being like, oh, I need to call the nurse. Like, we need to get them medicated.
Right. Like, oh, so many unique stories that you had too. And your own journey is quite unique. So from where you were as a teen to now, would you be open to sharing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up pretty normal and I went off to college at Florida State University. And during my freshman year of college, I ended up getting pregnant, obviously unplanned at 19, and decided to keep my son. And I ended up on welfare. And that was very difficult. I did end up going to nursing school, and I'm very grateful for that, and kind of digging myself out of that hole. And yeah, it's been wonderful. Nursing has been such a blessing to me, and I feel like I was meant to get there, but it was not easy at first at all.
Yeah, just reading how you really pulled yourself up through the bootstraps, and teachers were like, "Nah, are you sure you want to do this? This is hard." And you were like, "Yes, I'm moving forward with this," and really just put your grit on and move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was very difficult, but if I can do it, anyone can do it. I was 20 when I had my son. I graduated from nursing school at 22. So, I mean, didn't miss a beat. And truly, if I can do it, anyone can do it.
That's such a good message. Another thread that I found really unique in your book was it doesn't matter what walk of life you're coming from, right? You supported and shared your story about a gentleman who was living under a bridge,
Mhm.
and his kind of journey through hospice with you. And then you also shared a story of a woman, listening to crashing waves outside of her beautiful mansion, on a beachfront. So the common thread through that was they're all going through hospice, regardless of what it looks like, where they're at, what their financial background looks like or doesn't look like.
Mhm. Yeah, and they all die the same. They all have that same journey. And I've learned through that the people around us really matters, because my woman in the mansion, she had a wonderful husband who was there for her till the end. And my patient under the bridge, he also had a community, even though it wasn't family. And, the relationships that you build sometimes matters a lot more.
Yeah. I do hope that you write another group of stories as well,
I thank
because
you. I will.
sharing those, no, like really, like sharing those was just interesting, watching the common thread through so many different types of folks across the board.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one thing we like to talk about on this podcast is money memories, which I think segued perfectly from what we just shared into this. What's a money memory that you had as a young person or a child or even a teenager for that matter that really molded your relationship with money as an adult or where you're at now?
Yeah. So both of my parents growing up were real estate agents, and I'm 30. So in high school, we went through the housing market crash, and that was really difficult. Um, and from that moment on, I really decided that I would never be in a career where I did not know when my next paycheck would be coming from. And I'm actually very grateful for nursing, because even though I've gone into different streams of revenue, with the book and with social media, they'll have nursing. I'll always have a job, and I'm very grateful for that. And that really shaped my perception.
And we talked about this a little earlier, like where you see yourself really evolving to and what that looks like in 5 years from now, because you've already got that game plan in place, it sounds.
Yeah, I definitely do. So, one thing that I really see an issue with in hospice nursing in America today is with respite care, is what it's called, which is where when caregivers who are caring for their loved ones at home need a break, because obviously it's super difficult, they
Yeah.
can send their loved one to what's called respite. And usually what people don't understand is that's a room in a nursing home or a place in what are called hospice houses, but they look just like a hospital wing. And the caregivers usually can't stay. And the issue is that usually when people are needing help and a break is at the end of someone's life. And no one who has cared for someone for years at home is willing to risk not being there whenever their loved one dies. And I don't blame them at all. And them sitting at home being worried about their loved one is not a great at all. So I want to open a nonprofit hospice house. I want to open one here first and then have them eventually all over the country where we're not only caring for the patient, but their loved ones too. They have a bed to sleep in. They're coming, they're getting meals. And something else I've noticed working in hospice for so long, I go to a lot of patient funerals and people go up and they give their eulogies and say how amazing patients are. And I always sit there and think, my patient would have absolutely loved to hear this.
Mhm.
So instead of them giving those at the funeral whenever they're already gone, I would love for every patient to have a night at the hospice house where they invite all their family and friends. They get a meal, they get some champagne if they want it, and they do toast to their life and they can hear what everyone would say at their funeral, essentially. And that is really how I see how hospice houses should be a way to celebrate life and really actually get a break. So, my goal in 5 years is to have at least one hospice house open. That'd be my full time job, and hopefully, opening a few more around the country. I want them to be everywhere.
That's so needed. So, so needed, right? Just going through that, like with my family members and other friends who've gone that. Oh, that's so needed. Well, I'll check back in with you in 5 years. I want to see how that's going for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So another thing we touch on too is financial infidelities, right? So you've seen all the things just in hospice in general, and potentially in your own life, or witness something that could be a financial infidelity. What's something that you're open to sharing that you think that folks could learn from?
Yeah. I think that I almost say two extremes sometimes, which I think there needs to be a middle. I have seen people who have saved their entire life for retirement and they never enjoy their life. And then they end up dying at 50 or, 60 or whatever before they can even enjoy it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I see people who just spin to the extreme. And then when they get to the end of their life, when they need services like extra caregivers, things like that, they don't have the money for it. So I think, finding that balance is super, super important.
Yeah. I think with financial infidelities, like you had said, like it can be different to different people or different situations, right? So I think really making sure that you have a plan in place based on what your, individual goals are. I think that makes really, really good sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. And so, personally in our life, I still work as a nurse. My husband still works, even though we have social media money and book money coming in. And we save all of that comes in because we know this won't last forever. And, but we still here and there enjoy vacations that we wouldn't be able to. And, we enjoy that, but we haven't bought a new house or new cars or, anything like that. So I think that's kind of where we find the balance.
Yeah. And I think living your life, right? You had said, someone who works so hard and is in a stressful job and they retire at whatever, 60, 65. And unfortunately, some people pass away then just because they've lived, such a stressful realm. And I think finding the balance of trying to enjoy life along the way as you're working, like we
Yes.
don't, back to your book, like we don't know how long we have. No one knows that. No one knows.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one thing I like to ask before we wrap things up are what are some tips and or tricks that you use to utilize money in your own household?
Yeah. Let me think about that for 1 second. So we have 3 kids. And one big thing, we always buy resale for them because they grow out of it so quickly. And then we're really big on we plan our meals every Sunday. We grocery shop. And so the only time we really eat out is if we do a date night. And I think that helps having a really good plan in place for what the week is going to be like and sticking to it.
Yeah, and you're probably eating healthier along the way.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, good. Well, thank you so much for making time to chat with us today. So appreciate
Thanks so
it.
much for having me.
Of course. And hopefully you will join us on our next Platinum Talks Wealth podcast.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, Platinum Talks Wealth, please subscribe and share. For more information about Jennifer Rogers Markwell or Platinum Wealth Management, please visit www.platinumwealth.net. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member of FINRA and SIPC. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. The guest speakers and their companies are not affiliated with or endorsed by LPL Financial or Platinum Wealth Management.